I had a stroke of inspiration, so this is going to be your no BS guide to making goon and rank jerkmate. No honey pack needed. I would say no matter how you slice it, it's going to be a pretty big grind to make it over to goon. I would say that there's going to be lots of strokes involved, but I'm going to go over some of the top strategies that you can use in solos queue, and then I'm going to account for any differences that you're going to have to take into account when it comes down to the duos ladder. So before we start the guide, I think that establishing some of my credentials is pretty in order here. So I have done pretty well for myself in season 1 of ranked Jerkmate. I am currently ranked 71 on the solo ladder, and I am currently ranked 6,684 on the duos ladder. Now, these are some pretty impressive credentials just for the first season. I just wanted to put this guide out here for you guys in case you have some high aspirations for season 2, which will be beginning on February 1st. Now, first things first, we've got to talk about your overall build. Now, for the most part, there's not a lot that you can do in order to control what you were born with. You just kind of got to use what you have. But when it comes down to it, there is one thing that you can control, and that is whether or not you are going to be clipped. Now, I'm going to link a video up here above. I've gone into my thoughts about what I think about the clip. Personally, I am vehemently and morally against it, but when it comes down to viability within the ranked Jerkmate ladder, you're going to need to go ahead and go with clip. And I'm going to go into a couple of reasons as to why that's the case. So one of the most important things you're going to find about most builds whenever you're queuing up on the ladder is that starting at around diamond ranked, you're going to find that most people are opting to use dry style as opposed to using any sorts of lubricant. So what that means is that when you are using a build that opts to be clipped, it might lead to some situations in which you're going to be a little uncomfortable because, you know, it could result in some unfortunate small micro tears. However, what you will find is that you're going to be less likely than your unclipped brothers to have any premature climaxes. So as a result of that, you're going to be able to properly set up your finishers, which is what the name of the game is. That's what's going to win you most of your games. I mean, just as a personal anecdote for me, my original duos partner ran unclipped. He had an unfortunate foreskin tear that led to him unfortunately being unable to participate in the rest of the season. So that's just one of the things that's just going to make it, you know, really hard for you to be able to actually make it up to goon. With that out of the way, the second most important thing I would say is to really familiarize yourself with a specific stroke technique. Now, there's a lot that are offered within the base game, and you can go ahead and play around with a lot of the different options that are out there. However, there are 3 main meta options that I would really like to go over with you guys. So those 3 options are going to be crazy style, long style, and slimy style. Now, you can honestly go with any of these 3 styles regardless of your build. A lot of it really just comes down to personal preference. Now, I personally went with long style. My duos partner ended up going with crazy style. Ended up getting some really good results for both of those. But either way, you're going to want to go ahead and choose any of these 3 styles. All right, guys, so I'm editing this in post right now, and I just wanted to report on this because there's been a recent development in a European server. It turns out that two-handed style has become one of the top styles in the server, and it's pretty much completely usurped crazy style. Now, unfortunately, you're only going to be able to use this if your build is above a certain length requirement, but the crazy style has pretty much been completely invalidated in the meta. But fortunately, pretty much any mention of crazy style in this video can just be replaced with two-handed style. So any mention of that, just go ahead and think about two-handed style instead. Sorry about that, guys. Also, while you're here, leave a like on the video down below. Now, a lot of us have probably already been familiar with long and crazy style. They've been pretty mainstays in the meta for pretty long. When it comes down to slimy style, this is something that's up and coming in the meta. Players in the Japanese server has been utilized and get to great success. It's really good at tripping up the opponent and overall has a really good stealth class. And that's going to go ahead and give you some really good advantages when it comes down to higher ranks within the ladder. Now, as important as it is to understand and be familiar with your own stroke pattern, it's also important to be able to understand what your opponent's stroke pattern is as well. When you're up in the higher ranks, you're going to be able to want to identify that within the first 3 seconds of the match starting and be able to adjust your strategy accordingly. Now, if you're able to do that, then you're going to be able to exploit the weaknesses and really time your finishers really well. So, for example, if you're able to go ahead and pick up on the fact that someone is using long style within the first 3 seconds of the match, you're going to be able to make a pretty good read on the fact they're going to have a long and meticulous game plan and trying to stall out the game as long as possible. So, with that knowledge, you're going to want to go ahead and shorten the matchup and make it so that you're going to be able to trip them up, throw them off guard, and make them have missed timings on their finisher. Now, you might have noticed that I haven't mentioned other strategies such as Mega Pump, Dual Twister, or Super Stomp. All of those are very viable strategies, especially when you're on a lower ladder, around bronze or iron. But once you start to get towards the higher ranks, usually around platinum, it's going to be really tough to be successful with those stroke patterns simply because they're just not really good into the rest of the meta. Hopefully, we're able to get some buffs to those classes, but at the moment, it's just not very viable. Now, overall, it's just season 1. We just made it out of the beta. Obviously, there are still some kinks in the game, and there are going to be some updates coming out, and they're still releasing new styles to this day. So there's definitely going to be some shakeups in the meta, but again, just right now, those are the main 3 styles that you're going to want to focus on. Now, on to the important part, the part that everyone's excited about. Let's talk about finishers. Now, I know that this is the most exciting part of the game, and the meta is really shaken up ever since the Joke Twister 3000 has been banned. So let's go over some of the options that are available to you and what's going to be really good moving forward. Now, personally, what I've been utilizing is the Edge Master 6090, but there are plenty of other good options. Just name all the viable ones in the meta right now. You're going to be able to use the Whiplash, the Goon Explosion, the Rope Shooter, as well as the Heavy Dribble. Now, they all have their own pros and cons. I'm not going to get into which one is definitively the best because there isn't an answer to that, making for a very diverse meta. So what I'm going to do is just give you some general rules of thumb as far as the meta is concerned at the moment. Pairing a stroke pattern like long style is pretty good for some finishers such as Edge Master, Rope Master, and Goon Explosion, making it one of the most versatile stroke patterns out there in the game right now. Crazy style pretty much exclusively uses Heavy Dribble for its really fast cooldown, and Slimy style typically works well with either Whiplash or Goon Explosion. Now, just a brief excerpt about the differences between singles and duos. Now, when it comes down to singles, it's a pretty straightforward game of outgooning the opponent. Now, where the meta is going to be a lot more complicated is when it comes to duos. That is definitely where the competitive circuit is going to be. So once you start seeing any tournaments popping up, it's definitely going to be duos games because there's much more depth to what you're able to do with that meta. Just as stroke pattern is very key to any solos game, stroke synchronization is very key to when you're playing duos. Now, oftentimes what you might find in the lower ladder, your typical, silver or gold player that's stuck there and can't get out, they're going to usually have their duos partner use the same exact stroke pattern as them, thinking that that's going to be the way to go. Unfortunately, it's usually a lot better to go ahead and diversify your options while still being able to get your stroke synchronizations. Just think about music. If you're doing quarter beats and your duos partner is doing half beats, you guys should be able to line up every half beat together. So it's not really about actually lining up every single stroke that you guys do. It's just about having a good tempo down so that you guys can get those synchronization points. So those are some of the best tips to go ahead and reach top goon and rank Jerkmate right now. I would say that a really good time to practice would be right now at the beginning of Black History Month, just to go ahead and take advantage of that double XP event that they have going on. If you guys would like for me to go over the big Tyrone skin that just recently debuted, please comment down below.